Happy weekend, everybody. It's Truth Bombs. I'm thrilled to be joined by my mom, life coach Renee Hecker. We are vacationing in Arizona, catching up with family, but we are also pursuing this story on Dr. Rashid Buttar, one of the group of doctors that were labeled, well, not just doctors, but influencers in general, that the White House labeled the disinformation dozen. Now, he died mysteriously. People still don't know how he died. Friends of his say that he died at his home last week, May 18th, and that the family wants to stay private and have a private funeral service. So the family is not really speaking out about this, although his fiance posted a statement, as you can see in my previous YouTube. Dr. Rashid Buttar's death is very newsworthy because of the White House's and corporate media's attacks on him. Some people refer to the disinformation dozen list as a hit list, that the White House seemingly created a hit list against public figures who are not reciting White House PR lines. Dr. Buttar was one of the very first in the country to question the public narrative in regards to the pandemic. And he went out in February 2020 saying, look, this thing was man-made. They are going to be developing a new pharmaceutical. Beware of that pharmaceutical. You don't want it. And he developed a huge following. He in turn got put on the disinformation dozen list and kind of wiped off the face of the internet. You and I were just talking, we've been following the alternative media throughout the pandemic, and both of us were kind of surprised that we were not really aware of Dr. Rashid Buttar, because he was one of the first to raise public awareness about the media, that the media narrative might not be truthful in regards to the pandemic, because he was one of the first to lead the questioning of the narrative. He was also one of the first to get severely censored. So that when people like us were a little bit later to come to questioning the narrative, he had already been wiped off the face of the internet. But he kind of led the charge on questioning the narrative. Now, of course, that's when I was in the corporate media, so I was a part of the mainstream narrative. But I instinctually, from the beginning of the pandemic, I was just like, hold on, guys, this is another illness like the cold, except maybe more similar to the flu. Why are we freaking out? Why are we shutting it? What really struck me at the beginning of the pandemic is like, instantly, why did the world say we need to lock ourselves at in home prison because of something that's similar to the flu? We didn't have data yet on death rates, whether it was truly as bad as the flu or worse. But before anyone knew an ounce of data, they were already saying, everybody lock yourselves in your house. So I just thought that was a little questionable. So I was questioning it from the beginning, and inside my newsroom asking, why are we overhyping this to the viewers? Why are we hiding recovery rates? That was one of the biggest alarming things to me, is that my news outlet, which is Fox, guys, I was a Murdoch employee, was intentionally hiding recovery rates. At the beginning of the pandemic, they did not want to make it clear, the media didn't want to make it clear to the public that you can recover from this thing. Not everyone is dying.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it's a real pandemic, you don't have to order the people so much like they were doing. You don't want to go out. You want to
because you're
yourself.
Seeing your next door neighbor drop dead. But that wasn't happening. They had to orchestrate anything. Anyway, before I'm going to jump into what I have found out so far about the death of Dr. Rashid Buttar. Real quick, shout out to the sponsor of my coverage. I could not do it without these sponsors. So when you purchase from them, you help my independent journalism. National Gold Group. So the 2023 economic crisis has started, according to Wall Street Journal. The banking failures signal an alarming trend of economic challenges to come for Americans. Morgan Stanley commercial real estate is, they said that commercial real estate is headed for a crisis worse than 2008. Wells Fargo recently said commodities are in a super cycle and we have at least 6 years to go, with gold surpassing 3,000 an ounce in potential outcomes. Historically, when stock markets go down, gold value goes up, you guys. So the time for gold is here and demand is soaring. Let National Gold Group show you options for investing in precious metals like gold and silver in your retirement accounts and for direct delivery. Mention my channel, Ivory Hecker, and you'll always get best in class service for real American service providers. The National Gold Group IRA fee waiver program allows you to invest your IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for their lifetime fee waiver on qualifying rollovers. So call the number linked down in my description. You can click that link or call the number 888-617-5927. 888-617-5927. Remember, there's always a risk of loss. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Okay, with that being said, when Dr. Buttar, it kind of, when he died, it kind of leaked out in the crevices of the internet. People on Twitter were posting a memorial, quote, we're sorry to announce the death of Rashid Buttar. But where did that memorial statement come from? Who was putting it out? Even, very little of the mainstream media is even covering his death. Vice News covered his death the other day, and they linked to a random tweet someone posted, copying and pasting that statement, and simply said this statement is floating around Twitter that he's died. So did he really die? A friend of mine got dinner with me and said, I'm not confident Rashid Buttar is really dead. Did he fake his death and go into hiding? But if he did die, what did he die of? We don't even know that. So as a journalist and looking at all the mainstream media not getting answers themselves, they're ignoring the fact that this man has died, despite the fact that they covered him incessantly when he was alive, attacking him. CNN does a sit-down interview with him and calls him crazy. The reporter called him crazy to his face for saying that every American who gets this pharmaceutical in the arm is a ticking time bomb, that they have this, so-called poison within them that may be slowly attacking their body in various ways. And the reporter is saying, what? So I had that pharmaceutical. You think I'm gonna die soon? He's like, you think that's possible? Buttar says, I think that's probable. 14 months later, the reporter died.
Wow.
It's shocking, which I included in my last, that soundbite is in my last YouTube video. So checking your comments, making sure you guys can hear us okay in this makeshift setup we have here in Arizona as we are with family. Me and my mom. By the way, my mom, Renee Hecker, an amazing life coach. Where can people find you?
You can go to my website, onetruenorthllc.com, or else you can have the link in my bio on One True North Life Coaching on Instagram or on Facebook too.
There you go, guys. Yeah, I linked her website down below. Fabulous life coach. Okay, you guys said turn up the microphone. See, all we have is the iMac microphone, so we're gonna just get closer to it and hope that works for you guys. Okay. So as a reporter, I've covered a lot of deaths. As a crime reporter previous to leaving Fox, so I know how to cover people who've been murdered, look up their deaths. So I looked up and saw that Dr. Buttar is from Charlotte. I tried to find his address. Sure enough, he has a home address in the Charlotte suburbs in Mecklenburg County. So I'm like, okay, the statement floating around. I took that statement floating around with a grain of salt, but I did find the Bollinger family, who were another part of the disinformation dozen. They are friends of him, and on their website, their official website, they posted a lengthy statement with their pictures with him. It was clear that was an authentic statement of his death from friends of his. So I took more heed to that, and they too said that he had died May 18th, at home with his family. He died at home with his family, and that his family just asked for privacy at this time, and they just want us to keep quiet about his death. And so I said, okay, he did die at home, and the public records show that his home is in Mecklenburg County, so therefore we got to call the Mecklenburg County medical examiner. Well, I have not been a reporter in North Carolina, so I don't have the cell phone numbers handy of medical examiners like I would were that my locality. Were it Houston, I would literally call up the cell of this medical exam. But I was able to file official request on their website for a copy of his autopsy. So I am awaiting the autopsy. Who knows how long that'll take. Sometimes what happens is the medical examiner will release the partial autopsy showing the manner of death, and then they will wait to send the toxicology report until like about 6 weeks later. Toxicology reports always take longer, but sometimes they withhold it all, citing toxicology. Making the excuse, well, we don't have toxicology details, therefore we're not going to show you anything. So we could wait a very long time for his death. We've had someone pounding on the door.
The dog.
That's the dog. We're at my sister's house. She has a very small dog. I'm surprised it's so powerful at pounding on the door. Anyways, I hope you guys can hear me better. Now, I recently did a YouTube short on this Olympian gold medalist who mysteriously died at her home. No word on how she died at the age of 33, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. And that they were doing the thing where they withhold the entire autopsy for weeks upon weeks. I think the New York Times said it might take up to 6 or more weeks to get her autopsy, which I thought was weird. At least give us the manner of death. But so we'll have to see, how she died. Anyway, I said, well, if we're waiting the autopsy, can I just confirm that he did indeed die? So I went down to downtown Charlotte, the government building there, and let me just bring up my notes on what that building is called. And I asked for his death certificate, Dr. Bitar's death certificate. I went to the Register of Deeds in downtown Charlotte. 720 East 4th Street, Charlotte. Went down there in person. I happened to be in Charlotte for a charity event, oddly enough, right after he died. So I was able to go in person. And I'm no longer there. I'm in Arizona now. But so what do you know? There was no record of his death. The Register of Deeds had no record of his death certificate, no indication that he had died whatsoever. That tells me one of 3 things. Either he's not dead, either Dr. Bitar is not dead, either his family is taking a long time to get the death certificate filed because he died on the 18th, is what the Bollingers are saying. Or he died in another county, which could very well be. Just because public record says he lives in Mecklenburg County right now does not mean he actually lives there currently. So, I tried another county, but it is a needle in a haystack trying to find public confirmation of where this man actually lived so that I can figure out whether he actually died. Give me your thoughts, Mom, while I let the dog in because this is loud.
My thoughts as I'm listening to Ivory are people need to be less fearful. When you're fearful, you're so easily controlled. And I think when you're in this, and also question everything. Question. Instead of just receiving, I don't care who it's from, even our children, we've told them to question everything. You even need to question us, your parents, and what we're showing you and teaching you. So that I think just so you're better informed why you're doing what you're doing and why what's being asked of you is being asked of you, and you can make a really good choice. So many people responded to that time of pressure out of fear and just doing it because they believed what they were told. And we had been through so much up to that time of our own ailments in our family and treating them ourselves, to the point of myself being struck by lightning, and I never went in. But I'm always listening to my body, and your body is so wise to know what it can handle and when it's too much and when you really do need to seek outside help. Um, and I felt completely that my body could handle it. It swelled up incredibly from the lightning strike, but I wasn't fearful, and I felt like my body would handle it, and it did. I guess someone said at that time, told me that lightning burns from the inside out, and so it travels down your bone marrow, and you can't really see what's happening in there. And they were afraid for me, but I wasn't, and my body took care of it. I think we have been led to doubt our body's capabilities to handle things. So when this came out in 2020, my husband and I had not an ounce of fear, because we had seen how many things our bodies and our children's bodies were really capable of handling. And like we were talking about before, there was nobody dropping dead from this. I mean, there were some, I should say, there were a lot, but they were handling it completely different than what we would handle things. Even as some of the studies are coming out now, the way the hospitals were handling it with the ventilators and things, was not the wisest way to handle it. I had heard that even back then from these rare sources that were being censored.
There was initially, New York got hit with this pandemic hard in the beginning, and ventilators were deployed, systematically in New York. And so right away in the initial months of the pandemic, we had big data from New York on how successful ventilators were. I think it was 12% of the people who were put on ventilators survived. So ventilators were basically a death sentence.
Some of these side doctors, I remember one in particular, was saying that he uses that as a last recourse because he found it was detrimental.
That's the doctor that ultimately led to me getting fired from Fox.
Yeah.
Dr. Joseph Verone said he avoids ventilators like the plague, and he based that avoidance on the data out of New York. He was one of the very few doctors who actually looked at how did it work in New York and then avoided what didn't work. I have a friend who had a very healthy 60-year-old uncle living in New York City. This man would do countless push-ups every day, very healthy, who catches this illness, goes in, they shove a ventilator down his throat, and sure enough, he dies. But there was no reason for him to die. But here's the thing, prior to the pandemic, we came from a culture where all my friends, when they would feel sick, they'd go right into the emergency room. It's programmed into the American brain to just, well, I guess I gotta go into the emergency room if I'm feeling a little off. And so that's what people did, and we now are learning that this protocol that was deployed nationwide somehow, with apparent financial incentives associated with the CARES Act, meaning our federal government would pay hospitals to copy and paste a protocol that nobody's checked whether it's actually working well. They would deploy this protocol on the American people, and actually more people would die with that protocol than with the smaller hospitals that had the freedom to say, we're not getting CARES Act money, we're going to play around with like what's actually working. What we're seeing didn't work in New York. So Dr. Verone's protocol, he ended up saving 4 times more lives than the average hospital across America and around the world, after I independently studied the data from the CDC, World Health Org, from his hospital, compared the numbers, and found that out. This is after Fox banned me from letting the word out on what he was doing, which is what was so sickening to me, is that I felt there was blood on the hands of Fox for preventing the word about his hospital, what was working, from getting out. So that's why I left Fox. But yeah, so Dr. Buttar was someone who was questioning things from the start. saying something is off, and not just saying something was off, but citing data from our federal government apparently that you could look up online about how they had worked on certain things, perhaps planning this. That's why they put an L in pandemic. Anyway, he ultimately got targeted by the White House. Now he's mysteriously dead. The White House and the media are staying hush about this. I think it's very strange. I think someone who was so high profile and personally targeted by the White House, when he dies without a reason, abruptly, he looked healthy in the live stream before he died. I think it's the duty of the American media to look and make sure that there was no malfeasance there. A lot of my viewers are very concerned. They feel he probably got murdered with how much he was targeted. So we need to it's my duty to try to find that out, and I'm still working to find that out. I have been texting Mrs. Bullinger, waiting for her to hopefully do an interview with me and talk more, since she was a personal friend of his, talk more about what they know about his cause. Can we at least have some indication that was this natural, was it a freak accident, or was this very suspicious?
Yeah, and if you've been someone that does your own health care and you're doing your own doctoring, through the years have been aware of what things are banned that you can't get. Some of the things, natural things that I wanted to get for my mom with her lung cancer I went to the health food store and they're like, we can't sell that.
What was it?
And it was just I think apricot pits and vitamin B17.
Oh.
And which is a simple natural ingredient, but she said you can kind of go online, go on the black market kind of and get them. Which I ended up getting.
Yeah. So I got red pilled about natural health really early. I remember, so I was in high school, and I heard a word about. I don't know how I stumbled across this, but I found old National Geographic magazines in the high school library, in which they were featuring the mountain people of Pakistan. These tribes in the mountains of Pakistan. They were the oldest citizens of the world, the oldest people in the world. They would be spry at like 120 years old. It was crazy. Very wrinkly though. Anyway, the National Geographic journalists talked about a huge part of the diet of these people of Pakistan was apricot pits. And so then we started looking into apricot pits and found they have incredible healing powers. And then we found how there's all this, warnings about them. They might be bad for you. Well, then how the heck did the people of Pakistan live that old?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's been
so you guys found apricot pits.
Well, there was a claim that you eat 7 apricot pits a day and you'll never get cancer. And if you taste them, you understand why. They're very bitter. By the time you eat 7, your mouth is like kind of pulsating, almost like numb a little bit. So
yeah, they don't taste good.
But
I found there's a health food store in Houston that actually I found they were selling them by chance one day.
Okay.
And I bought some.
And what am I thinking here? I guess we got them for my mom and ground them up to give them to her. Oh, I know what I was going to say. There is the belief that you need for good health, you need the 5 different flavors in your diet: sweet, salty, bitter, pungent, and there's one other. Did I say sour? Sweet, sour?
I don't think you said that.
Sour. And so these being bitter, and because bitter doesn't taste that good, a lot of my father-in-law, who's passed on now, said that when he was little, Lyme's disease had a bitter taste. And they
Lyme's disease has a taste?
I'm sorry, lima beans. Lima beans. Lima beans had a really bitter taste, and over time, they no longer had that anymore. And so I believe that they were known to have vitamin B17, but I think the American diet has kind of taken a lot of the bitter out of our foods so that they're more palatable, but with it taking certain vitamins that our body needs.
Anyway,
So,
the doctors had given Grandma Hanson how long to live?
oh, like weeks, maybe months.
And she ended up living how long?
3.5 years later, just by doing natural things.
Yeah, so she went in for a checkup around the time of her death sentence. You know, the doctor was like, yeah, you should be dead at this point. Instead, the cancer had dramatically shrank. So apricot pits were a part of her alkaline, all around alkaline diet change. So changing grandma's diet dramatically improved her health. We know from firsthand experience the power of changing your diet for health.
Well, all along, when things have come up, just tried things, tried things that we've read about, have heard. So with my mom, one of the things we had also heard, beside the apricot pits, was changing your diet to a fully alkaline diet will reverse cancer, because cancer can't live in an alkaline environment. So we just did some of those simple things that she could do in her home, and she did really well on that.
So, guys, in regards to Dr. Buttar, I have put some links down in my description I think you'll find interesting. Really interesting thing, the first time that he really went viral was with Next News Network, where I have been a contributor. My friend Gary Franchi sent me a text saying that this doctor sent me this video hours before he passed away. We were about to do a follow-up interview about the impact our initial interview had on the world. So Dr. Buttar in April 2020 went on Next News Network. That interview went viral when he was breaking down with great detail how this appeared to be a planned pandemic. Anyway, so I have linked down in my description my friend Gary Franchi's tweet with the full video that Dr. Buttar had sent him just before he died. This video was promoting his conference, which was supposed to happen this weekend, which has now been canceled. The conference website also has a statement on his death. But this video plays all these key clips of how Dr. Buttar accurately predicting how this thing was a man-made, and then a year later CNN's reporting, well, it appears it's man-made. He was way ahead of the curve. That it came from a lab. And so he gave that to Gary a day before he died. He was also on a live stream interview looking healthy the day before he died. So it's like, what the heck happened? Now, he said in approximately January of this year that he was apparently in the hospital for 6 days in the ICU with myocarditis and stroke symptoms, which those can be associated with poisoning. So what was he poisoned with? That's unclear. Now, he had speculated that he was poisoned with the new pharmaceutical, which sounded a little like, why would you think it was the new pharmaceutical? Because most people, as soon as they get it, are doing fine, and you say that you suddenly are. I don't know. I was just thinking maybe it's like some more basic poison, like Cobra or something. Like that poison was actually used by the CIA, as covered in the newspapers, New York Times, back in the 70s. Maybe it was something like that. But regardless, I'm trying to find the cause of Dr. Buttar's death. I know a lot of you guys really want to know. I want to know too. When the White House is personally targeting someone, demanding that the media censor him in violation of the First Amendment, and when the federal government is commanding the media to censor someone, there goes our First Amendment. So we had the White House doing that to Dr. Buttar. Now he's dead. We need to know why. We need to know if the White House was involved. All right. Media's got their blinders on, though. So I'm going to keep my eyes up, try to keep getting answers. So stay tuned to my YouTube on that. Definitely look at the Gary's video that he tweeted out, that link down in my description. He also tweeted, I also have the link down in my description of where Dr. Buttar says he was poisoned. And then I also linked the full live stream interview he did May 17th, the day before he died, where he talks about being poisoned in there as well. So definitely check that out. I also want to mention that before the pandemic, what was Dr. Buttar? He was an osteopathic doctor, which looks at full whole body holistic solutions to health issues, and he really focused in on cancer and autism.
Mm.
And he believed that heavy metals may be associated with autism symptoms and cancer. And apparently, I think it was on the Bollinger's website, that their statement on his death, they talked about how, I think that's where I read it, that he had used his treatment protocol of removing these toxins from the body on his own son, because his own son was like, you know, developmentally slow, I guess, in his childhood. And apparently he was able to cure his son's slowness, that he's a regular kid now. So it appears that his son's autism may have gone away, which is huge, because we don't, we're told that you can't heal autism.
Yeah, removing heavy metals from the body, doing different natural things to pull those out, I think would heals a lot of those. He's not the only one whose child has been cured or made so much better that has had autism.
Yeah, I'm checking your comments. You said, can you do a FOIA request on his autopsy? Well, I have put in the public information request on his autopsy to the jurisdiction where his public records show he lives, which is Mecklenburg County, in North Carolina. That's where, we're assuming he lives based on public records. But the issue is, like, if he was afraid for his life, thought he'd been poisoned, good chances are he switched homes, moved somewhere else. He could be in any state. I just saw an article out this week out of one of the New Zealand papers saying that he was a permanent resident of New Zealand up until the pandemic 2020. He escaped New Zealand before they closed their borders and came back home to North Carolina. I don't know if that's true, but the North Carolina papers are reporting that. Or I'm sorry, the New Zealand papers are reporting that. So did he go back to New Zealand and that's where he died? I mean, it's a needle in a haystack trying to find the jurisdiction where Dr. Buttar died without one of his family or friends tipping me off saying, hey, this is where, so that I can actually look and FOIA the correct jurisdiction. When it comes to death records like this is not a federal document. I can't just FOIA our federal government. It's not a national document. So I have to do a needle in this haystack search to find which tiny jurisdiction, which county this doctor died in order to get the autopsy. So I'm trying. I put my feelers out to multiple people who know him and waiting to hear back. Now, Mrs. Bollinger has been very kind to me, but still distant. And and when people lose someone in their mourning, they don't really want to talk to reporters. So I understand that, and I'm being patient. Hopefully, can get you guys some answers on what happened to Dr. Buttar. I wanted to read to you guys a little bit from a 2014 article in The Atlantic in regards to some of the work that Dr. Buttar was doing before he died. I guess it was called chelation therapy. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I don't know.
So I had not heard of this before, and apparently, this is the way that you extract heavy metals, and that holistic doctors for many years have been saying that this helps a variety of issues. So the Atlantic does mention Dr. Buttar in this article, but they actually focus in on a traditional medicine doctor and scientist who was very against this so-called quackery. So it was really refreshing to read a mainstream Atlantic article who highlights someone like this. Basically, this doctor was asked about chelation therapy, if I'm pronouncing it right. And he said, of course not, that's quackery. And then he reflected on his instinctual reaction, said, why did I react that way? I actually don't know much about it. And are there studies on it? There aren't really. Well, maybe I should lead a study on it rather than reacting emotionally and calling it quackery. So the Atlantic article follows this doctor who launched a huge study looking at 55,000 treatments with chelation. I don't know if that how many people were involved, if certain people got multiple treatments, but it was a pretty large scale study. It said here chelation has for some time occupied a crucial niche in mainstream medicine. The therapy, which commonly involves an intravenous infusion of intravenous, as I gotta pronounce that, of ethylene diamine tetracic acid, EDTA. This acid was approved by the FDA in 1953 to treat lead poisoning. Today, if you find yourself uncharacteristically, eating some antique paint, any credible doctor will recommend chelation. So this stuff that's called quackery, that's used by alternative doctors, was FDA approved back in 53, but just for lead poisoning. Don't try it on anything else, guys. Anyway, so EDTA will form an ionic bond with the lead in your blood, flushing it through your kidneys and into your urine. So you get rid of the heavy metals through your urine. This is FDA approved, guys, and it's so crazy to me that the mental conditioning that it's only for antique paint because paint used to have lead in it. You don't need, do not treat the heavy metals in your body from anything else, because you can't get heavy metals from anything else, just from old paint. No, how about we explore whether this ionic bonding of the metal flushing out through your urine could actually help you in other areas. So the Atlantic is breaking this down. Now, they said that the results of this large-scale study that this doctor actually did, it was positive initially. It says people who received chelation after a heart attack had because he wanted to specifically try on heart attack patients, people with heart health issues. So Dr. Buttar was using it on cancer and autism. But this doctor looked at, does it help people with heart issues? Which I guess that would mean that heavy metals would cause heart problems. So it said that people who received chelation after a heart attack had a 26% chance of another heart attack or stroke or hospitalization within the next 5 years. People who got the placebo infusion had a slightly higher risk, 30%. A difference that is statistically significant, but barely. Among patients with diabetes, the result was more impressive. Chelation reduced deaths in diabetic heart attack survivors by 43% over 5 years, which tells me, okay, maybe heavy metals are more associated with diabetes than with heart disease. But then Atlantic goes on to feature this Dr. Nissen, who was outraged that this doctor conducted the study at all. He said this is very dangerous because people are going to try chelation instead of mainstream options for their heart, and so this is going to cause more deaths because people are going to say, oh, I'll be cured by chelation, and then it doesn't work, which is the same narrative they used with the pandemic. I'm sorry that you're seeing that you guys are having sound issues, audio issues. We are working remotely with limited technology right now. So hopefully this works. Next week, my technology should be back up and running in my home studio. But just crank up your volume if you can, because this is an important topic. Now, Dr. Buttar actually testified before Congress in the early 2000s in regards to his use of chelation on autism patients. I have linked that down below as well. So there's a lot that we have talked about. Now, that we can't showcase. These things that I link, they're things that would be banned on YouTube. So just click the links down there and you will be able to see what YouTube doesn't want you to see. Also, my mom likes this one doctor who invented a treatment in the early 1900s for cancer. What is it, Mom?
Well, yeah, using frequencies. I guess I can't say what it is because it'll be banned. But
No, you said, I think we can say biofeedback, right?
a biofeedback
It's just
machine
the doctor's name. The doctor's name is censored by Google. It's really creepy.
Yeah, he was I think born in the late 1880s and died in the mid, I think it was 1970s. But he had technology that he used frequencies to heal, and was successful with it, to my understanding, with cancer.
Except when he tried to send it mainstream, nobody would take it.
See, this is the time when mainstream was pushing pharmaceuticals.
Well, the pharmaceutical. That's right. Just as he had discovered this, I think it was around the 1930s that the pharmaceutical industry just started booming, and prior to that, people were studying the healing effects of light therapy. The Nobel Prize in Medicine went to a light therapy researcher in 1903 or 1904. But all that stuff was just thrown out once the pharmaceutical industry came along, because they were powerful with their money, and there was no money to be made on light, no money to be made on frequencies from this biofeedback machine. And yeah, so it got, it got no traction in the mainstream media, or even though it was working, right? And the pharma knew what to do. They funded mainstream media so that media would cover what they were working on.
And it sounds kind of woo-woo that frequencies can heal you. You can't see anything what's happening. There's a woman in my area that has a biofeedback machine, and my husband and I went to, and you're just strapping something on your wrist and I think on your ankles, and she's sending frequencies to the issues that you have. So you're not seeing anything.
Can you physically feel it?
You can feel like a vibration going on. You can feel a vibration going on.
So she tunes it to like attack the wrist, and you feel your wrist vibrating.
So yeah, like my husband had Lyme's disease, so there's a certain frequency that kills parasites, and so she was using that frequency to kill the Lyme spirochetes. And for myself, I didn't really have anything wrong. But I was there, so I said, that my husband, he's a logger, and would give me such big hugs and so strong, and would sometimes crack that little bone that connects your ribs.
He would hug you too tight. Yikes!
And of course, he didn't mean to, but it had been bothering me for probably years, on and off. And so I said, I have that little connective tissue, whatever that is down there. I don't even know what it's called, but it's extremely painful some nights, just rolling over in bed.
Ooh.
So she studied a little bit and zeroed in on that area, and I walked away from there, and in all these years have never had trouble with that since. And I've been dealing with that for some years. So could obviously see that there's something to it. And Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the mysteries of the universe, think in terms of vibration, frequency, and energy.
Anyway, so I also linked a little article on this doctor who worked in the 1930s on this groundbreaking cancer research that then got bagged. Do you guys know how many billions the cancer research, cancer cure, cancer charities are raking in every year? Of course they don't want a cure. They are filthy rich off of no cure for this. Anyway, so I linked this little article on him, which again, he's censored. If you Google him, you're gonna find what Google wants you to know about him. So you kind of have to dig around yourself. But this article says, was cancer actually healed? It is reported that in 1934, University of Southern California appointed a special medical research committee made up of doctors and pathologists. They were to bring 16 terminally ill cancer patients in the last stage of their cancer from the Pasadena County Hospital to the doctor's laboratory in San Diego, where they were to be treated with the technology. The committee was to examine them in 90 days if they were still alive. Amazingly, after 90 days, it was reported that the committee concluded that 14 out of the 16 patients had been completely cured. And guys, they were terminally ill. Treatment for the remaining 2 was adjusted and intensified. Within the next 4 weeks, it is reported that they were also declared cured. That's astounding.
And I was reading.
Look into it yourself. Do your own research.
I was reading earlier today that the people who were promoting it, I'm assuming in the mid 1900s, were pronounced, that it was quackery, and some of them imprisoned for doing so, for promoting this. And
so I had caught rumors while I was working in the corporate news. I'd caught word of these remarkable cures where so many people deal with certain ailments like cancer and heart disease, and can we just find an actual cure? And then we hear about these incredible cures, and why aren't these cures in the mainstream? And I remember going to my boss's office at Fox one day, sitting down in her office and saying, I would like to cover some natural health. And she literally chuckled at me. Ivory, you're a crime reporter. You're out there on the murder scenes. You're out there on the natural disasters. Natural health? Oh, you're silly, Ivory. And she shooed me away. But, mainstream media does not cover natural health because every commercial break is filled with pharmaceutical ads. They get money from pharmaceuticals, and so they will never tell you of the deadly side effects of those pharmaceuticals, and they will never tell you how nature can cure you. So now that I'm free, I do want to highlight more of that.
And the case, the thing is you can get help from pharmaceuticals, but pharmaceuticals generally, like you said, all have a side effect. Whereas the natural cures, their side effect is better health.
Exactly. We were just talking about how Adderall can indeed help you focus, but its side effects are anxiety, and long-term it's heart disease and mental health problems long-term. Destroys your libido long term. So a lot of bad things with Adderall, but like temporarily it can help you focus. But if you got off of that and like realized, okay, what is practically causing me not to focus? How can I clear the clutter in my mind just by myself to focus instead of doing the pharmaceutical cheat? That way you can fix the problem without these side effects.
And the thing is a lot of them I think why pharmaceuticals are so attractive is that if you can just pop a pill versus changing your diet and exercising and controlling your emotional state, things like that are beneficial to your health. That's why so many people go in part to pharmaceuticals, because it's a lot easier, it's a lot quicker, but there's usually a side effect ultimately, is the cost of it.
I'm seeing the comment in the comment section right now. You said that Steve Kirsch just offered $5 million for someone to prove that these pharmaceuticals do not cause autism. Ooh, okay. Let's look at it, guys. 5 million up for grabs. All right, I wanted to get to the other topics that I had promoted on social media that we were going to discuss today. Texas legislature is a mess, you guys. Apparently the speaker of the legislature is straight up drunk while passing laws that affect the millions, tens of millions of Texans. Guys, just listen to this soundbite. This is the speaker of the Texas legislature.
Mr. Speaker, I move adoption.
Mr. Campbell sent out an amendment. The amendment is acceptable to the author. Is there objection to the option amendment? The chair has none. The amendment is adopted. The chair recognizes Mr. Johnson of Harris. Mr. Johnson of Harris to speak in opposition to the bill.
You want the chair recognizes Ms. Niave Criado to speak.
The chair recognizes Ms. Niave Criado to speak in opposition to the bill.
Thank you, Ms.
Mr. Speaker, I move adoption.
Mr. Campbell sent out an amendment.
Anyway, so this man, drunk out of his mind, this tweet saying, anyone who watches the Texas legislature house knows many of the members are regularly intoxicated. Watching the speaker be this wasted is absolutely unacceptable. These representatives are making laws that impact 30 million Texans. It must stop. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, put out a statement 2 days ago saying the liberal leadership of the Texas House has routinely killed conservative legislation, including important bills which would help secure our border and protect the integrity of our elections. They have demonstrated nothing but contempt for the traditional values of conservative Texans. So they're nixing all conservative values well wasted out of their mind. Like, oh, let's get rid of anything. Oh, freedom? That's out. Our borders? That's out. Oh, I passed that while I was drunk? My bad. Anyway, he says, Ken Paxton says, it is not surprising that a committee appointed by Liberal Speaker Dade Phelan, that's the drunk guy, you guys, would seek to disenfranchise Texas voters and sabotage my work as Attorney General. The false testimony of highly partisan Democrat lawyers with the goal of manipulating and misleading the public is reprehensible. So yesterday, the drunks, and get that Ken Paxton called him liberal. This man is actually a Republican. But after Ken Paxton called him out and called him liberal, he is looking to impeach Ken Paxton, the Attorney General. I've got to show you this development yesterday. He still sounds drunk to me. Here it is.
When
Mr. Murr will call up a resolution proposing the impeachment of Mr. Paxton.
Okay, when he calls up the resolution proposing the impeachment of the Attorney General, will the members of the House have the ability to ask questions of any witnesses?
No, sir.
Will the members of the House have access to any firsthand evidence?
The members of the House will have access to the evidence presented to the committee.
Will the members of the House have access?
So
to
there you go.
something-
He's trying to talk to the drunk speaker about why the heck he and others are looking to impeach Ken Paxton after Ken Paxton called out the fact that Texas is allegedly red but seems very blue. And we have this Republican who's acting very Democrat in leadership of Texas. What the heck is going on? Is this a wolf in sheep's clothing? Anyway, this is strange times in Texas, you guys. I also wanted to mention the woke Fox News policies that kind of hit the mainstream this week. That I actually blew the whistle on this after I left Fox and put the documents out months ago. I'm glad that more mainstream is catching up on Fox's hypocrisy. Here's the thing. If you want to give all of your employees weird pronouns like Z-Zer, then that's fine, but don't on TV pretend you're the opposite. Oh, I hate these people why are you pushing weird pronouns and gender changes? That's what they say on their TV. Then behind the scenes, they are pushing exactly what they criticize. Okay, and here's where I talked about it. I had another ex-Fox Corp employee. She came on as well. We were both aware of the Fox hypocrisy behind the scenes, and she and I talked about it on my show months and months and months ago. Here it is.
Don't realize Fox Corp is woke behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They pretend to be anti-woke on Fox News. So Fox Corporation Employee Handbook, they have multiple pages all on gender transition. Gender transition, the company is dedicated to expanding and strengthening our current effort to sustain a more inclusive work environment. And so they make sure that we all know the definition cisgender, gender fluid, non-binary. Fox Corp has this all. And of course, transgender. And then they have a whole plan for if you want to switch your gender, you just say the word and they will give you that time off. People don't know behind the scenes, this is the same company that Tucker Carlson works for. One of the last Fox Corp emails I got before I left the company, Fox Inclusion celebrates Pride Month. It's fine to shout out Pride Month in June. It was just funny that they send this long email about ways to celebrate. They want their employees to all watch 50 Shades of Gay. This is Fox Corp, and make sure you know all the pronouns, including Z, Zer, Zers.
It's so
Yeah. So that's Fox. That's what Fox actually does internally, which again, like whoever wants to celebrate Pride, that's fine, but don't bash transgender whatnot on their TV and then do the opposite. But they're pushing transgender behind the scenes, encouraging people to switch. Fox literally is incentivizing its staff to chop their breasts off within their. I signed the employee handbook, had to, saying, okay, absolutely, if I want 8 weeks off, I just have to chop my breasts off. But so the hypocrisy is just what really bothers me about Fox, and that was just their hypocrisy again was just one thing. The censorship of facts that matter to the American people was the worst part. Okay, I also mentioned that I would talk about the Kardashian surrogacy controversy. So Khloe Kardashian randomly she's holding this little baby boy. I'm like, she wasn't even pregnant. What happened? It was on her Instagram. Well, now she's talking about how she got a surrogate. Basically, her egg was implanted in another woman, and that woman grew the child in her womb. Khloe was not aware of the emotional effects of this situation would have on her.
Surrogate process, Kim knows it's really hard for me.
Well, what does that mean?
She had a really hard time accepting the whole process.
Got it.
It's a mind. It's really the weirdest thing.
I do think that there is a difference. When the baby is in your belly, the baby actually feels your real heart. Think about it.
Right.
It like touches your organ. Like there's no one else on this planet that will feel you from the inside like that, like your heart, you know?
I got so many good jokes.
And people can connect in different ways. People could not connect.
Do you feel less connected?
Mm-hmm.
That'll take a minute.
Yeah, people say.
I mean, listen,
but Kim
the other was
said
10 months of
hers
walking
was
around.
like easy. This is not easy.
I definitely buried my head in the sand during that pregnancy, that I didn't digest what was happening. And so I think when I went to the hospital, I really think that was the first time that really registered. And it has nothing to do with the baby. It's just, you're like, okay, we're having a baby and this is my son and I'm taking him home with me. I definitely was in a state of shock, I think, from my entire experience in general. Don't stop. I felt really guilty that like this woman just had my baby and I take the baby and then I go to another room and you're sort of separated. Like I felt it's such a transactional experience because it's not about him. I wish someone was honest about surrogacy and the difference of it, but it doesn't mean it's bad or good. It's still great.
Wow. Yes. I had never looked at it that way before. You know, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for women who can't have children. But what made me think when I watched that last night was of the baby, I guess, and how it's been with the mother this whole time, the woman carrying it, and then immediately after being in her womb for so long, put in another woman's arms, and what that causes within the baby.
You think the baby can tell this is not the same person who gave birth to me?
I think so. You know, of course, not on a conscious level, but yeah, all the senses of a baby are so keen.
Someone's asking us to pray for their uterus. Oh. May God make your uterus fruitful.
Yeah, abundant. Yeah. Peace. A lot of peace. Prioritize peace in your life.
Peace will help your uterus, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, peace helps your overall health. And you know how many women want to have a child so badly and do everything. And then when they finally resign and give up that they are not going to be able to and they'll adopt, they adopt and they get pregnant because they finally have peace and acceptance.
Oh. Right.
So,
Wow.
I mean, that's not all of the time, but we know how stress harms the body. Peace heals it, the opposite.
Wow. The final thing I was going to talk about was phases of a man. I also promoted to talk about this. Phases of a man. Oh my gosh. So I was talking about relationship issues. Who doesn't have relationship issues? Trying to make sure that you have a wonderful relationship with your significant other. But then drama happens, and how do you avoid that? Well, my sister was like, you need to read Keys to the Kingdom. It's helping me so much. And I was like, what? Let me look this book up. This book is phenomenal. Any woman trying to figure out what the heck is going on with her man, why they are clashing, read Keys to the Kingdom. Dog's trying to block me out. Keys to the Kingdom. Phenomenal. Even if someone's saying I'm single, even if you're single, read Keys to the Kingdom, because then when you meet that significant other, you will understand them so much more. It's definitely geared towards women understanding men, but you're definitely going to understand women if you read it as a man.
I think even a man understanding himself.
Oh, it'll help. It'll help you understand yourself.
Yeah.
And basically, it lays out how men, like almost every man, goes through the same phases in life, and you need to understand what phase your man is in and why he's acting that way. Based on everything else that he's dealing with and what he needs for his manhood. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is spot on. I get it now. Now I know how to respond to him. I was going to respond the totally wrong way. I almost nuked my relationship, but this book saved me by minutes. Please, you said please do not make men understand themselves. With this book comes with this warning that you must not use this book to manipulate men, because once you understand men so well, you could use it in malicious ways. But this is to empower men, and to empower yourself as the female in the relationship with them. So it's just a wonderful, positive book about
how to not take things personally.
Yeah.
When you understand why something's occurring, why dynamics are like they are, you learn not to take things personally. So much damage in relationships is done from taking things personally.
Right. So, and that helped me in the nick of time. I was like, oh, I don't have to take what he's doing personally. Literally, this is the phase of his life that he's in. Which some of the phases they talk about last like 10 years. Men will be in this 10-year phase where it's like he has to operate this way for his manhood. And if women don't get it, then they fall by the wayside. And I was like, okay, am I going to make myself fall by the wayside for not understanding him? Or I'm going to understand him and stop taking things personally and actually support the phase he's in, and therefore help myself and him. So anyway, I recommend Keys to the Kingdom. I'm really excited about that book right now.
Or you can wing it.
Just
wing it.
Right.
Sometimes that works too, but I think when you get, I think even the proverb says to get wisdom, but with all your wisdom and knowledge, get understanding. When you have understanding of why things are the way they are, it helps tremendously.
Yeah. So I just want to say something. I'm a millennial in my millennial culture. A lot of the women around me, a lot of my friends, there's this false narrative that a giant percentage of men are narcissistic. That's the popular term right now. Like, oh, I guess all men are narcissistic, or anything that you're concerned about. Like, if you come to your girlfriends, like, I don't know about, he acted this way, what's up? I think he's a narcissist. That's like the first thing they say, and I'm like, hold on, guys. As someone who's always thought outside the box, I'm like, hold on. I think you're falling into a deceptive narrative about men. Like, men also have issues, insecurities, pressures on them that cause them to act a certain way. This isn't narcissism. Maybe he's insecure too, and maybe you should show him some support and actually communicate better with him. Stop acting like he's some adversary, the way you're treating him, and maybe he'll respond nicer. Maybe it's not, I'm just like, guys, Men have baggage too. That doesn't mean they're a narcissist. So, and this book like confirms my suspicions that, yeah, a lot of these traits that millennial women in 2023 are labeling as narcissism are actually the men like instinctually needing to align with their manhood by operating this way. And women take it personally, get it and call him a narcissist and run away. So this is just a fabulous book. Let me, someone shouted out, Keys to the Kingdom right there. Look it up, give it a read, especially if you're a woman. Or if you're a man, it'll help you understand yourself. So with that being said, definitely check out my mom's work as a life coach, empowerment life coach. She has really helped people who are just kind of going through a rough patch in life, right, Mom?
Yeah, that need power, have meaning, find their energy and joy and zest for living again. So much of us lose that, anxiety seems to be such a chronic thing. It's almost like if you don't have anxiety, what planet are you from? So how to live a life that you actually enjoy living and feel empowered in it and learn to be the creator of your life rather than just living by default.
So the link to Mom's life coaching is down in my description. Renee Hecker, One True North Life Coaching. Someone asked me, the author of this book, Keys to the Kingdom. It's Allison Armstrong. Apparently there's multiple books called that. So Keys to the Kingdom by Allison Armstrong, Allison with one L. Check it out. It can really salvage a relationship that's falling apart, guys. It's wonderful. All right, with that being said, have a fabulous weekend, and we will talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.